Hello, my name is Stephen Lee, and I'm going to do a presentation for you guys on Vibrio cholera for our disease presentation project. So the etiologic agent is called Vibrio cholera. That's the pathogen name itself, and it's typically found in coastal and murky waters, generally anything that's dirty. So, and it also tends to be more abundant in warmer climates. So the natural reservoirs for this pathogen is anything that's generally aquatic and also humans. And it's also associated with algae blooms too. So here's the morphology, right? So O1 and O139 are epidemic variants. There's other variants too, but these are usually the ones that we care about a lot. And there are some O1 and O139s that produce toxins that cause disease, but some of those also don't cause disease, and those that are the ones that we call non-cholera Vibrio cholerae. So some characteristics of this pathogen are that it has spiral motility, it's gram-negative, it's got curved rods, it's got a single flagellum, and they're usually very motile. And they tend to tolerate alkaline environments, which I'll elaborate further on in the next slide. So on virulence factors and mechanism of infection. So this varies on strain and serogroup as previously stated in the last slide, and it also varies on region and climate. So the O1 and O139s are the epidemic variants that that's the one you gotta keep in mind. And it should also be known that these are sensitive to acids in the stomach and acids in general. As you can see on the picture on the right, they die when they are submerged in acid, like in the human stomach. And when they die, they release enterotoxins, also which are called choleragen or cholera toxin. So it's not really the cholera, it's the Vibrio cholera itself that causes it, but it's the toxin that it produces that causes it. So what happens is this toxin attaches itself to the plasma membrane of epithelial cells in the intestine, and it causes CAMP production. And CAMP is called cyclic adenosine monophosphate, and that's what causes the secretion of chlorine ions in water into the intestinal lumen, which is what causes diarrhea and dehydration. As a matter of fact, like dehydration from the diarrhea is actually what kills a lot of the time. It can kill. That's what I mean. So the disease itself is called cholera. The pathogen is called Vibrio cholera. And the incubation period is typically around 2 to 3 days, but it can also be up to like half a day. It's pretty fast in some cases. And is caused by toxins produced by a microorganism, like I said in the last slide. And like I also said that the ones that don't cause cholera are also called non-cholera Vibrio cholerae. But it also should be noted that 25 to 50% of some cases, especially the fatal ones, especially the severe ones, can be fatal, right? And again, there's the whole enterotoxin thing called choleragen or cholera toxin. After the organism dies, it releases it. So the symptoms are mild to severe diarrhea, there's fever, and if you have an open wound and you get it through that, it becomes red and swollen. You can also get dehydration from the diarrhea, and also there's like high blood pressure and high heart rate. Low blood pressure and high heart rate. Now the way this is transmitted is through contaminated food and water. And for food, usually it's like undercooked, and also sometimes seafood is a source of it. Now when it comes to water, a lot of the times it's large outbreaks in certain areas can be caused by communal water sources such as pools or wells and things like that. This disease is actually pretty common in places like India, where this is more common, right? So it should also be known that transmission direct between two individuals is not as common as you would assume. It's usually transmitted through the fecal oral route. So it's like poop to mouth, like somebody poops in the water and there's like cholera in there, and somebody drinks it a few miles downstream and probably gets it or something like that. That's kind of what it means. So I looked at the lab diagnosis, and the way you look at this is that you got to isolate serogroups O1 and O139 from fecal samples. And you can use dark field and phase microscopy to figure out and identify it. But there's also this thing called crystal VCRDT, which is Vibrio cholera rapid detection test, right? So it uses like a fecal sample and they liquefy it in a tube and they put it into a test tube and they get a calibrated dipstick and they put in just a little tip of it in there in the sample. And after 15 to 30 minutes, there's the results show up. So as you can see in this picture right here, there's the control bands that are going across in the valid results, and the invalid results have no control bands. You can see on valid result A, there's O139 positive, B, O1 positive, and C, both of them are positive. D, it's negative for both of them. I just thought it was pretty cool, so I wanted to share it. Now, the way this is treated is through hydration, either through IV or oral means, because of diarrhea, which causes fluid loss. And it can also be treated with antibiotics like doxycycline, azithromycin, and ciprofloxacin. It's also noted that in children, zinc supplements have been known to reduce severity of the illness. And it's usually started immediately. So in order to prevent this disease from catching this, you got to make sure that the water you use for daily stuff is clean, right? Like cooking, brushing your teeth, drinking. And you also should have to wash your hands with soap and make sure the water that you use is clean. And make sure minimize the chances of fecal matter and water getting in contact with each other. Like wash your hands, basically. Like if you wipe yourself and don't wash your hands, you forget to, and you go to the kitchen and start cooking for your family, that's how this kind of thing spreads. And also, it's just to cook food well and also clean up in places where you might suspect that's dirty. It's actually fairly simple. There's a couple of solutions that you can use to clean yourself. So there's alcohol-based sanitizer, which is 60+%, which is what they recommend and use. It's a hand sanitizer, right? And 2% chlorine for pretty severe stuff like vomit, feces, and corpses. And 0.05% for bathing people, laundry, hand washing, things like skin-to-skin contact. And 0.2% for wiping down equipment and bedding, inanimate objects like that. So there are vaccines available like Vaxchora, Dukoral, Shancol, Uvicol. I don't know that much about it. I didn't research too much into it, but I do know Vaxchora was allegedly discontinued, though. And people who are immunocompromised or have some sort of issues with their bowels or something like diabetes should actually consider vaccination. And this is also one of those diseases where you can get it again. There's really not that much built up immunity at all. You don't become a carrier. There's a few special facts that I'd like to tell you, and it's that there's like 1.3 to 4 million cases of this a year. There's like 21 to 143,000 deaths per year. It came from the Ganges Delta in the 1830s, and there's been 6 pandemics. There's a few incidents of it, such as in 1837 in Bengal, 1840 in China. It exploded in 1848 in Europe. It went to California in 1850, and it got to Cuba and Jamaica in 51. The pathogen itself was also discovered by a Italian physician called Filippo Pacini in 1854. And also at the same time, an English physician named John Snow demonstrated that it was contaminated water that spread cholera during an outbreak in London. You guys might have heard of him. Yeah. Did some interesting stuff. Here's my references, and here's a few questions to make sure people are at least listening to what's going on. So what's the direct cause of cholera? Is it A, B, C, or D? Algae, cholera toxin, O1, O139. Which one is it? 2, how is it typically spread? Skin to skin, droplet, airborne, fecal, oral. Which one is it? Next one is what best describes the shape of V. cholera? Gram-negative rods, gram-positive cockies, gram-negative cockies, gram-positive rods. I don't know. And you should know who discovered Vibrio cholera was spread through water. So it was it Edward Jenner, Jon Snow, Robert Koch, Filippo Puccini? Who was it? I don't know. You are having to clean up a corpse covered in feces, right? This is a pretty nasty job. So which one of these would be the best solution for this job? Soap? I don't know. Alcohol? Hand sanitizer? I don't know. Chlorine? I don't know. But I'm going to show you the answers in just a moment. So the answer for the first one was the cholera toxin. Second one was the fecal oral route. Three was gram-negative rods. Four was Jon Snow, and five was 2% chlorine solution. And I think that's the end. All right, thank you very much. Bye bye.